Welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. I'm here with Jessica Burbank, who is in the color of the summer. Is this the brat color?
Yeah, Robbie. I've been infected by the brat summer virus.
I see. Oh, the woke mind virus gets
And
some
there's no
people,
cure.
but the brat summer. So I was actually at a concert last night. I was at Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins. It was great.
It's a different kind of green,
Different
but
kind of
green nonetheless.
Green nonetheless. So apologies if I'm a little hoarse. I was singing my head off last night.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you did that.
Well, we're going to get to the show anyway. What are we talking about?
I'm not weird, Robbie. You're weird. And that is the attack line coming out of the Democrats' arsenal as they fend off Donald Trump, JD Vance, and company. Kamala Harris's campaign launched the It's Weird attack last week, mocking JD Vance's first solo rally. Let's take a look.
Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything.
I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday.
And one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who's rumored to be on the short list of Harris's potential VP picks, piled on and said this on MSNBC last week. Let's watch.
These are weird people on the other side. They want to take books away. They want to be in your exam room. That's what it comes down to. And don't, get sugarcoating this. These are weird ideas. Listen to them speak. Listen how they talk about things.
And weird got weirder when the message carried on through this week. This is how the Harris campaign responded to a Trump appearance on Fox. Harris's campaign quickly hopped on X and posted, "Trump is old and quite weird." Then HQ posted, quote, "This is weird," above an ominous picture of Vance, in his own words, saying, quote, "I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally." Now, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hopped on the trend too, posting, "Being obsessed with repressing women is goofy. Trying to watch what LGBTQ plus people do all the time is abnormal. Punishing people who don't have biological offspring is creepy. It's an incel platform, dude. It's super weird." And even Hillary Clinton chimed in. If Republican leaders don't enjoy being called weird, creepy, and controlling, they could try not being weird, creepy, and controlling. Another user on X posted a meme of a Trump-Vance lawn sign that reads, "Weird, so effing weird." So faking weird? I don't know what that means, Robbie. But just a note, the lawn sign is not real. What is so faking? Is that just their new way of not swearing and saying something else?
I mean, look, the online right is weird sometimes, for sure.
Fair.
So are just very politically active people on social media. I think that's also true of the left online. I mean, what is being, I'm sure JD Vance has said things in the past that I would agree are weird, as have most political leaders on both sides. But it's what is being classified as weird here. I heard Tim Walz say, excuse me, that they want to take away books. What books are we talking about? We're talking, I assume we're going to the Florida kind of curriculum control type stuff. Those were books with graphic depictions of oral sex for kids. That is the books Republicans didn't want in public school classrooms. So I think it was weird to say, no, they have to be distributed. If teachers can't give these books to kids, it's a violate, like that's what's weird to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the Republican response. Republicans such as Vivek Ramaswamy posted Sunday night, quote, their weird argument from the Democrats is dumb and juvenile. This is a presidential election, not a high school prom queen contest. It's also a tad ironic coming from the party that preaches diversity and inclusion. Win on policy if you can, but cut the crap, please. Vance himself took to X, taking a swipe at Harris, posting the following video with the sarcastic caption, "JD Vance is weird." Let's watch.
Hey guys, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
She, her, and her? Mine too.
All right.
All right, first.
Now,
Isn't it weird to introduce yourself that way?
she's saying what pronouns she uses so they know how to refer to her in a way that doesn't offend her.
I think a lot of people find that weird.
Some people do find that weird. That's fine, to each their own. And I think that's the big thing. Is it antisocial if someone says, hey, my name is this, and you start calling them by their other legal name when they've introduced themselves as something else? That's a bit antisocial. It's a bit weird. Is it weird to infringe on other people's lives and rights? I think weird is the right categorization. I think it's fair to do that, to say this kind of policy making that's very much about people's personal lives is weird and creepy.
I mean, both political parties have infringed on our rights an awful lot. This is coming from what the Democratic Party saying that Republicans want to violate your bodily autonomy. This is the party whose president declared a vaccine mandate for millions and millions and millions of workers, saying they're going to lose their jobs unless they got the COVID shot, a shot we now know does not prevent you from getting COVID, even the justification, which was the justification for the mandate. A party that wanted to, wrestle masks onto toddlers, despite scientific evidence suggesting that this intervention was not specifically effective for children, and also children being not an at-risk group. We've just gone through we went through the pandemic through years of deep violations of people's personal bodily autonomy, and now either Democrats want to have their cake and eat it too, and now they want to say Republicans are the party of violating your, bodily related civil liberties. I mean, the reality is both parties have done this, have forfeited a lot of high ground on this, I would say.
I think it's weird in the sense that usually it's about sexual stuff and your family. And I feel like that's different from wearing a mask on your face or getting a vaccine, which is a public health concern.
I mean, again, sexual stuff in your family. This is the graphic sexual books must be in the school libraries party.
Well, there are many books that are appropriate for young adults that are in the same school. My friend John Green writes books. He's known for The Fault in Our Stars, which became a movie, Turtles All the Way Down becoming a movie. Some of his young adult novels are being banned from the target age range in Iowa, and I think that's why people like Kim Reynolds are not very popular governors, because this happened under her watch. And I think what we're going to see is, this is just weird because you're making decisions for other families, other parents. But I will say I'm worried that this will have an impact that is not so different from Hillary Clinton and deplorables. That some people will say, oh my God, they think I'm weird. I'm never going to vote with this party. And I'm worried that they'll alienate people with this. They really need to just keep it to the cat lady and abortion stuff.
That's good advice. We'll have more Rising right after this. Protests broke out across Venezuela yesterday afternoon after Nicolas Maduro was declared the winner of the country's presidential race despite numerous accusations of fraud. People took to the streets to demand the truth, the real results of the election. Maduro was announced as the winner at a ceremony held by the National Electoral Council, which is filled with his own allies. The council has not yet issued a final vote tally from Sunday's election. Opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez says his campaign has the proof it needs to show that he actually won the contested election. He told reporters he received more than 70% of the tally sheets. The White House has expressed doubts about the Venezuelan election results yesterday.
What are the reasons that the U.S. is skeptical of these election results, and what will the U.S. do if proof emerges that shows Maduro actually did not win?
We share many of the same concerns that you just heard on the streets of Venezuela, that there hasn't been sufficient transparency here in the counting and the tallying of the votes. We saw these statements by the election authorities, the electoral authorities. What we want to see is a harder look at the data and a more detailed tabulation of the votes.
In the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, crowds walked down the road, banging pots and pans in anger over Maduro's victory. Protesters cheered after they tore down a statue of former President Hugo Chavez. Security forces deployed tear gas to disperse the protesters. Now, self-proclaimed Venezuelan freedom activist, who's the founder of the Dissident Project and is receiving his PhD from Columbia University, Daniel DiMartino joins us now to discuss. Thanks for coming on the program, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
So I think it's important for us and our viewers to really understand the perspective you bring to this. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about why you decided to leave Venezuela and what your family did in the country before you left?
Yeah, I left Venezuela in 2016. Our family had a gas station. We were a middle-class family, like many Venezuelans. In the early 2000s, we used to make thousands of dollars a month. By 2016, we were making $100 a month. Today, that's the average salary of a Venezuelan every month, which is why the economy is destroyed, right? Because hyperinflation destroyed it. They printed money to pay for the welfare spendings. They took over people's businesses, and they really destroyed a country that was once one of the richest countries in the world. And that's why we left.
So what happened in the election on Sunday? Maduro, I think as expected, has declared victory. Is there, can you go over the argument the opposition is making that the results were not accurate, or what's being said by Maduro is not accurate? And is there any chance that they will be, that the opposition will be successful in making those claims?
I think a lot of people have to understand that Venezuela is not a country with a regular government. This is not a government, and this is not an electoral authority. This is a group of drug traffickers that occupy a country. And it's called the Cartel of the Suns, indicted by the Department of Justice. Maduro is not a president. He's a dictator. The electoral authority is not an electoral authority. It's his friends who were coup participators in the 90s and criminals, and they declared a fake result, one that has no evidence. The United States shouldn't even be saying that we need detailed data. There is no data. They made it up. There is no real vote tally that they have. We have all the ballots that were counted by hand in the opposition, and Venezuela hasn't really had a free and fair election for well over a decade. So what we need to be doing now is understand that the Venezuelan opposition is looking to overthrow the Venezuelan regime, because that's the only solution to what's happening in Venezuela. 8 million people have left Venezuela in the last 10 years. Millions more are claiming that they will leave if nothing changes.
Now, there have been a great deal of sanctions imposed on Venezuela. How does this affect the people in Venezuela and their economic status? Your family being in the gas industry, middle class, owning a small business. Was this a driver in your family leaving?
Not at all. I think there's a big misconception. People use the word sanctions without understanding any of the policies that are implemented by foreign governments against Venezuela. There are only sanctions against the government of Venezuela. I have sent money, I have sent food, I have sent everything you can imagine to Venezuela, received things. You can hire people remotely in Venezuela. You can travel to Venezuela. There is no restriction at all. In fact, the Biden administration actually released many of the sanctions on the government, which I think was a huge mistake, that allowed the regime to obtain more money to buy what? Weapons that they're using right now to repress the protesters. Earlier in the segment, you mentioned they're using tear gas. Yeah, they're using tear gas, and they're using handguns with bullets. And I have seen already videos of at least 5 people being murdered by Venezuelan security forces, including a 13-year-old boy.
So the U.S. government, the Trump administration, gave support to Juan Guaido, the previous leader of the opposition to Maduro, in hopes that there was going to be, I think, a sort of popular uprising on his behalf, that there would be a replacement of the Maduro regime with Guaido. He ultimately ended up seeking sanctuary here in the U.S., leaving the country, and that did not pan out in the way the Trump administration, wanted it to happen. With that in mind, what is what would it take at this point? Because I think, many people in America would be extremely reluctant to be involved even more directly or militarily or aid-wise in some sort of uprising in Venezuela, given how that all worked out.
Well, I think that people need to see that there's only one side that has weapons in Venezuela, and that is the Maduro regime, which is why I'm really not optimistic about things changing in Venezuela. I expect much more bloodshed as people revolt against the government. They just kidnapped one of the main opposition leaders. They have an order to capture, really kidnap, because none of this is legal, against Maria Corina Machado, who is the opposition leader. And it's really a shame, right? Because the Venezuelan people don't deserve this. They didn't vote for this, and they're really living under a tyranny. I just hope that the United States upholds its own laws instead of doing what Biden has been doing for the last 3 years, which is that he released the nephews of Nicolás Maduro from prison, who were convicted drug traffickers. He released Alex Saab, who was a terrorist financier. he released the oil sanctions and allowed the Venezuelan regime to export oil to Europe and to the United States. When instead, we never say we should trade with criminals, right? That is not really what we should be doing in the United States or in any other free country. And that's all I'm asking for. I just hope that the opposition in Venezuela is smart enough and understands that they're not facing a government where we need to request a retally of the votes. We need to overthrow them. And that's not going to be done peacefully, unfortunately.
At the Aspen Security Forum the week before last, Laura Richardson, who is a military commander at U.S. Southern Command, she spoke about how the U.S. needs to impose the Marshall Plan, which is essentially that U.S. values and U.S. economic will is imposed on Latin America and Central America. She said that we have a lot of companies in the region. I don't think we're branding Team USA as we should. It should be better. She spoke about how Washington needs to offer its own Marshall Plan to Latin America and exert their authority over the region yet again. Does this concern you that so many U.S. officials are getting involved in the politics of Venezuela at a time when they're promising to impose an additional Marshall Plan and saying that's the direction they'd like to go in the region, given the history of coups across Latin America?
This is the first time I ever hear of the Marshall Plan in a negative connotation, when it was a humanitarian aid plan that saved millions of lives in Europe. I think that what she means, and I hope what she means, because that's what I really support and want the U.S. to represent, is that Latin America has been really influenced by China, by Russia, by Iran, who have been intervening in our own affairs. Cuba, for example, who has intelligence agents controlling the Venezuelan military and spies all over the region in form of their so-called doctors program, which is really a human trafficking and spying program. And the United States should be trying to trade freely with these countries. The U.S. doesn't have free trade with most of Latin America, and it should. This is an initiative that both parties have supported in the past. There's a bill in the House sponsored by Maria Elvira Salazar from Miami to allow free trade with Latin American nations. Because if Latin Americans are richer and can trade more with the U.S., that increases our bonds between Americans and Latin Americans. That reduces the likelihood that people will vote for populist leaders that will destroy their economies because now they're richer and they don't need welfare to survive. And so I think that that's a win-win for America and the rest of the world.
Daniel DiMartino, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Elon Musk and California Governor Gavin Newsom are at it again. Their latest online feud all started when Musk retweeted a digitally altered campaign ad of Kamala Harris. The video had Harris saying she's the Democratic candidate because Joe Biden was exposed for being senile, which obviously never happened. The video now has over 130 million views. California Governor Newsom tweeted, quote, "Manipulating a voice in an, quote, ad like this one should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of a week to make sure it is."
Elon then responded, an inappropriate joke to say the least, and said parody is legal in America. Others called out Musk for seemingly violating his own platform's policies. X's guidelines state you may not share synthetic, manipulated, or out-of-context media that may deceive or confuse people and lead them to harm. The video Musk shared did not have any sort of label warning that it was a parody. A Harris campaign spokesperson reacted to the parody video, telling The Hill, quote, "We believe the American people want the real freedom, opportunity, and security that Vice President Harris is offering, not the fake, manipulated lies of Elon Musk and Donald Trump." Now, this latest kerfuffle comes after Elon Musk recently announced that he'd be moving his company's headquarters out of California to Texas. Musk made that decision public after Newsom signed a law that bans school districts from requiring teachers to notify parents about changes in a student's gender identity or sexual orientation without the child's permission. It also requires the state's Department of Education to develop resources for LGBTQ+ students, families starting in 7th grade. Newsom reacted to the news that Elon was leaving with this tweet saying, quote, "You bent the knee," to which Elon responded, "You never get off your knees."
I think they love each other. I think there's a lot of tension there, and I think they secretly love each other, which I will say I'm only saying because everyone says that about AOC and Elon when they go at it.
They love each other. Look, I think we ought to be careful with actually manipulated videos that this was actually manipulated. I think that should be legal, and it should have just been flagged as parody. And he was wrong not to indicate that in the first place. He subsequently acknowledged that it was parody. If it's labeled as such, I think that's a different matter. I don't want to invite new bureaucrats to swoop in and write new regulations saying that what people are doing on social media is illegal. I think that could have First Amendment ramifications, but I understand why Dems were upset about it, and it should just be labeled as parody, consistent with Twitter's own rules going forward, what I would say.
Yeah, young people on X will see something like this and immediately within seconds be able to identify it's fake. That's not just because we're living in the internet. The internet raised us in some way. But it's also because our eyesight's a little bit better. We can see when the thing glitches. I have family members that need their glasses and hold the phone like this. They can't tell when it's fake all of the time. Their hearing's not as good. There are a lot of people who are of the age where they cannot identify if something is a deep fake or not, and these people are voters, and they can be manipulated by this. That's why it's a problem. I think that it makes sense that if it's AI and it's parody and it's fake, it's labeled as such. I don't think you need to label like skits and satire as parody.
Right, you make skits.
I don't want to have to, you don't want to tell someone you're making a joke, right? It ruins the joke. And so if it's AI, it makes sense. But if it's human actors, that's fine.
Yeah. I just think we ought to be very careful. AI is going to be a very innovative tool that could make all of our lives a lot better and easier, automatically generating scripts or emails and it's going to make communication jobs easier. I think the last thing we want to do is invite the current Congress with its aging members who don't understand tech in the least bit to come in and write some law that outright criminalizes expression in this category. Again, I think that might not stand up to First Amendment scrutiny anyway. So, and the idea that you're right that older people are more easily tricked by this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. People get, some small number of people get tricked. Actually, social science research shows us that not a lot of people are fooled by outright made up stuff on social media. It's a small number of people. Mm-hmm. That's going to always be the case, no matter what system you design. People are more media literate or social media literate than ever before in human history, and it's we have the democracy we have. So you can't. If your operating standpoint is if there's anyone online who's going to be fooled, the whole system doesn't work, you're never going to be satisfied.
There was this viral take that I think really encapsulates how I feel about AI, and it was that why are we using AI to do creative work, to write stories and make pictures, while we do our dishes and laundry and toil away and do the boring stuff and do our taxes? AI should be doing the boring administrative stuff we don't want to do so we can make art and enjoy life. But then there's also this side of things where I saw a post recently that was making a similar point, but it was in reference to an article where AI was used to detect breast cancer at a very early stage. And so AI can be used for good, it can be used for evil. It's like what that whistleblower at Cambridge Analytica said of big data, that it's like a knife. You can use it to make a sandwich, you can use it to kill someone. It's all about how you use it. The thing itself isn't bad. And I don't trust people like Blumenthal who asked Zuckerberg, do you commit to ending Finsta? As if this was like a subscription service.
He didn't know what it
Instagram.
was. He did not know what it was.
It's people making parody accounts of themselves that they only allow their friends to follow. It's just a separate private account in addition to your public one. It's not a service they offer, and so these are the people that are going to regulate AI. I think I'm happy John Ossoff is in the Senate. I'm happy younger people are getting elected to Congress because I do not trust our oldest members to tackle this issue.
I also don't really think it's the government's job to protect you from your own stupidity. Like if you're getting tricked by stuff, that's on you on some level.
And some of it's funny. I've shown Robbie a lot of ones of Joe Biden that I find hilarious. It sounds like his voice. It barely sounds like it's his mouth moving, but it's him saying ridiculous things. I think it's fun, and I think our political process can be grueling, and people want some comedic relief, but to use your own website to push this is just yucky.
But I mean, like, the thing we talked about earlier today that what Kamala Harris's campaign put out about J.D. Vance, being weird, and it's not it's not like altered, but it's cut in a way, it's edited in a way that's unfavorable to him. Like, that's okay, but this is not okay. Do you know what I mean? It starts to get into, I think, a very gray, it's artistic expression, and again, I think labeled for the standpoint of, not the standpoint of the law, but from the standpoint of the platform's policies, they should label these kinds of things as, or it should be clear that this is parody, but it's artistic expression.
Yeah, I think Elon
It's all
Musk,
just variations on the same thing.
Yeah, he should play by his own rules. I don't know what this law is going to look like from Gavin Newsom, but hopefully it backs up Elon's own rules. They love each other.
Have to imagine it will be bad, but more rising right after this. Over the weekend, Trump spoke at a Bitcoin conference where he vowed to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet. Let's watch.
This afternoon, I'm laying out my plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done. If crypto is going to define the future, I want to be mined, minted, and made in the USA. It's going to be. It's not going to be made anywhere else. And if Bitcoin is going to the moon, as we say, it's going to the moon, I want America to be the nation that leads the way. And that's what's going to happen.
Trump also slammed the Biden administration's efforts to regulate the industry and said that any new rules written under his administration would be created by people who love your industry, not hate your industry.
Meanwhile, the tech billionaires in Silicon Valley have increasingly been going at it online. As the election creeps closer, the New York Times writes that the fighting has been particularly acute among the PayPal Mafia, a group of tech execs who include tech investor and major Democratic donor Reid Hoffman, ex-owner Elon Musk, investor Peter Thiel, and venture capitalist David Sacks. Now, for example, shortly after the assassination attempt on Trump, Sacks wrote on X, quote, "The left normalized this," linking to a post about Reid Hoffman, who is a Trump critic. Then Elon Musk wrote on X, "The Reid Hoffmans of the world got their dearest wish, but then the martyr lived." For years, Silicon Valley was seen as a liberal stronghold, but Sacks, Musk, and other prominent investors, Mark Anderson and Ben Horowitz. Can we redo that part?
It's his name's Andreessen.
Andreessen, okay. For years, Silicon Valley was seen as this liberal stronghold, but Sacks, Musk, and other prominent investors like Mark Anderson and Ben Horowitz all broke from that view by endorsing former President Trump. Many of them cited Biden's tech policies, regulatory appointees, tax and cryptocurrency policies as reasons for their Trump endorsement. But I think it really comes back to Dodd-Frank and simple financial regulations. Dodd-Frank, after the 2008 financial crisis, was meant to prevent this kind of collapse in the financial system from happening again. They required banks stress test once they get to $50 billion in deposits. Now, Silicon Valley was beyond that. But unfortunately, a group of Republicans decide to pass new financial regulations that increase this threshold to $250 billion. So Silicon Valley Bank didn't have to stress test for that. This was a darling investment bank for a lot of these startups in Silicon Valley, and it collapsed. And so some of these financial regulations that they want to lobby against, because they want to free up capital, they want to start their startups, they want to make very risky investments, but it does make banking riskier for everyone else. And I think people want more stability, and I would caution anyone following these guys saying it's good for the economy.
Well, I would say that regulations should permit people who want safe, conservative investment banking to do that, and people who want riskier investment type situations to invest their money that way. And then they pay, if it doesn't work out. If it works out, they get those benefits, sure. If it doesn't work out, they pay the cost. The problem is when we privatize the profits, or allow the profits to be mostly shared privately by the people who've invested the money, and socialize the losses, where if you take a loss, if you get screwed up, we bail you out, we subsidize you, the whole system, ultimately the taxpayers, rescue you, which is what my understanding is what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. So I'm fine with them wanting a framework or an ability to invest their money accordance with their so-called expertise. That's fine. But then it can't be, oh, we screwed up, now the system collapses, or now the system has to prevent the bank from collapsing. No, if you invest your money and it doesn't work out, then you pay that cost. So I want Bitcoin to be, I think Bitcoin is an exciting potential development. There's a lot of instability in our own currency, a devaluing of our own currency, runaway inflation, and if people want to try out to explore alternatives like Bitcoin, they should be allowed to do so with the understanding that it can carry risk, and we've seen it go up and down over the years. And if people want to diversify what they own or what they have money in and use that as one option, I think that's perfectly fine. And it shouldn't be regulated. I agree with Trump that it shouldn't be regulated by people who hate it. It also shouldn't be regulated, obviously, by industry insiders who just make it friendlier for their specific firms. But it should be an option for people. And then if it works out for you, great. And if it doesn't, well, then you pay the cost, not someone else.
Yeah, I think that would be fair if McCarthy and the Republicans that voted for this overturning of Dodd-Frank regulations in 2018, they said, fine, you want to do risky banking, here's your banking charter. You're not getting FDIC insurance, though. We're not going to secure those deposits with public funds. So anyone who participates with a bank like this, guess what? Your money would be toast. I think there's a reason they didn't do that. And it's because Silicon Valley Bank and similar banks lobbied McCarthy for this bill. They know no one would deposit money into those banks without FDIC insurance. No one's going to put their money in a bank that it's not guaranteed to return to them when they withdraw it. And so they need that FDIC insurance in order to operate. And so I think paying government officials through lobbying to pass legislation like this is a major problem. And anyone that has to pay Congress to do something like this, obviously, members of Congress like McCarthy are not overturning this just because they feel like it. They're doing it because they got that money from Silicon Valley Bank. And so I really caution anyone who is looking at these tech investors and seeing them push these risky banks as being the source for funding. If it's a good investment, why don't you fund it, Mr. Billionaire? There's a reason that they're not, and it's because they know it's risky.
Yeah, like I just said, it should not be both federally backed and guaranteed and, like gambling at the casino. It's got to be one or the other. You do what you want with your money, and we'll have some minimum protections for just ordinary banks that if everybody withdraws at the same time, it has a federal backing. The more out there, zanier stuff, again, I think it's fine. It just should not be protected by the taxpayers in the same way.
Yeah, I think Silicon Valley and San Francisco changed. It went from where the Grateful Dead is from, in this place of like smoking weed and like free love and all of these vibes. And then a lot of those people got gentrified out. They all moved to Washington, D.C., of course, Robbie. Yeah. And now it's like a casino, like a big Las Vegas, but for very rich dudes. Yeah. And I think that explains the political mind shift.
But I'm fine with that. If you want to gamble with your money, go ahead and gamble. I think gambling should be legal. Go ahead, do that. Just don't blame anybody else for your problems.
I do worry about the Bitcoin stuff, that the carbon emissions are equal just about to the carbon emissions of Greece, an entire country. Like the mining uses so much computing power and energy that they're burning so much energy that it's increasing carbon emissions. It's like adding another Greece to the world. We're not putting Pandora back in the box. I mean, that's just going to be the reality. Our fake money is costing us more than our real money.
We should get some experts on Bitcoin to come on the show and
debate,
Rowan Gray back. Inform us about
and we'll just
what's
sit
going
and
on.
Watch and award points. It'll be fun.
That sounds great. More Rising right after this. Trump is on the offensive. He just announced that he will attend the National Association of Black Journalists Conference on Wednesday in Chicago and make himself available with a Q&A with political journalists, which will be live streamed. This is a new tact for the former president, who in previous campaigns has labeled the press, quote, the enemies of the people. He is also going after Kamala Harris hard, calling her failed, weak, dangerously liberal. Let's watch.
This is America's border czar, and she's failed us. Under Harris, over 10 million illegally here. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl. brutal migrant crimes, and ISIS now here.
Do you have any plans to visit the border? You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Kamala Harris, failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
Trump spent $12 million to air that ad in the key swing states of Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Georgia, and Michigan. It's the first major ad buy since Harris entered the race.
This ad campaign comes as Trump's camp attempts to stop the momentum building around Harris. Her improved polls, paired with record-setting fundraising, might be worrisome for Team Trump. They've refrained from pouring money into big ad buys over the last few months until now. And the airwaves will not be dominated by Trump. According to Politico, the Harris campaign is planning to spend big on a media buy, too. The $50 million commitment that super PAC Future Forward pledged should come in handy for Team Harris, Politico reports. An announcement from Harris's camp about its attack ads could come as early as this morning. So I do think it's weird that they always bring up fentanyl when they talk about the southern border, given that the DEA reports most of it's coming from China. This belief that it comes from Mexico is just, a bit dishonest, and putting it in a campaign ad. As someone who has family members who were addicted to heroin for a long time, and it got to the point that they were using fentanyl. A lot of people believe fentanyl is this drug that you only use by accident. It's something that's laced with it. There are people who intentionally take fentanyl that are that addicted to opioids. She's clean now, and she works on getting other people clean, which is a great story. But nevertheless, I do take issue with them always talking about the southern border and saying fentanyl is coming from Mexico and the Mexicans are bringing it in. It's a bad narrative.
Yeah, it's a real China problem. What do you make of Trump? He's going to talk to the Society of Black Journalists. We went over some polling the other day showing that black men specifically not quite sold on Kamala Harris yet. Trump really seems to be making overtures to picking up votes in this demographic.
Yeah, I really hope that there are tough questions asked. Questions with policy commitments associated with them. Questions about the larger messaging of the right lately around race and whether or not Trump agrees with that. Because I think a lot of the messaging that alienates black voters is not always things that comes directly from the candidate, but rather people close to the candidate and people who like the candidate. So I really hope there's hard questions asked and Trump is required to give a precise answer. I don't think there's any reason for journalists to debate with Trump. We see back and forths happen all the time in these press briefings, which are usually good. But I think Trump would be making a huge misstep if he were to start getting in debates with people during this Q&A. I think we need clear answers and clear policy commitments.
Yeah, for as much as Trump is perceived to have this combative relationship with the press, calling them enemies of the people, et cetera, Trump is more available to the media than Joe Biden has been. Trump enjoys talking to, he'll call them out if he doesn't like what they had to say, if he thinks they're being unfair or biased to him, he'll argue with them, he'll tweet about them, but he engages the media in a way our sitting president has increasingly failed to do over the last several years as he's just shrunk from public life, and his people, his supporters, his people in office have tried to keep the press at bay to avoid scrutiny of his obvious mental decline and physical decline.
Yeah, we talked yesterday about Kamala Harris's white women for Harris, or white women answer the call, the black men's call, win with black men, win with black women. Then there was this white men for Kamala Harris. I saw Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the actor. I think he's an actor.
He's an actor.
He said good things. But what do you make now that Trump is really targeting this faction of just black journalists?
Yeah, I mean, I think he hopes that these people, are going to say nice or kinder things about Trump to this demographic. The Republican Party has done very badly with black voters for many, many, many election cycles, like pitifully bad, like 8% of the vote bad. So they really only have room for improvement. And, it's, it's anecdotal, of course, but like I do when I interact with black guys, I perceive sometimes it's been brought up to me. This has literally happened to me on the street. People saying that they don't like Kamala Harris in this specific demographic.
So black men are stopping on the street and they're like, Robbie, I need you to know, I really don't like Kamala Harris.
I'm not joking. This has happened to me before. I mean, they know I'm a political commentator, so it's just not out of nowhere. They know that I'm someone who's interested in what people have to say. They want to tell me they don't like Kamala Harris. This has happened to me.
That's very interesting. Well, I think it's fascinating that
it's happening enough times where I can't just like write it off as a one-off.
You could create Black Dudes Against Harris and have a big Zoom call.
I guess.
But I do think it's rich that so many members of the right are coming and saying, oh, it's so ridiculous, this DEI, this targeted stuff for Harris, all of these affinity groups. But then you have Trump doing the same thing on the campaign trail, and that just speaks to politics.
What? How is he doing the same thing?
Well, he's speaking to a group that's just Black journalists.
Well, I mean,
that's discriminatory, as the right's been saying, to only allow that group.
Well, he didn't organize a Black journalists only thing. They're already having the thing, and he's going to talk to them. And it's more of a professional association because it's based in their employment.
But the voters for Harris organize themselves as well.
I mean, that's based just on their skin color. Look, I would not make a skin color based association if I was in charge of such things. But I think it's very different to have Trump court those people or talk to them than say that like the Trump campaign is not specifically organizing a Black people thing.
Well, the Harris campaign didn't organize those either. They were the groups organized them themselves.
I think in coordination with the campaign.
They were not. No, that would break FEC regulations.
Okay.
It was just the groups organizing themselves. So I think
it was just totally spontaneous with all those celebrities just happened to be like, oh, I'm available for a Zoom call.
Yeah, absolutely. PACs are very powerful in our political environment, Robbie.
Yeah.
They can put a lot of money behind candidates, and they can organize it independently of the candidate. If Trump's taking credit for what all of the PACs are doing, and that's how we're running this election, he's going to have a lot more to answer for than he already does, especially with the Project 2025 stuff. So, yeah, there's, of course, behind-the-scenes stuff that happens every election cycle where you have PACs and nonprofits, C4s, C3s, that are organizing in ways that cross the line somehow. And the FEC would have their hands full if they investigated it every time it came close. Of course, it happens. But I do find it fascinating that, Trump's hanging out with only Black journalists. What if a white journalist shows up and wants to go in, Robbie? Will they be discriminated against?
I hope not. I'm sure I'm sure Trump would meet with a white journalist too. Now, if they had a professional organization that was white journalists only, I don't think people would take too kindly to that, so they probably shouldn't start such a thing. More rising right after this. Former President Donald Trump appeared on Fox News with Laura Ingraham. He was questioned on past comments that he made about Christian voters not having to vote again in 4 years.
They're also attacking you for other ridiculous reasons. They're saying that you said to a crowd of Christians that they won't have to vote in the future.
Yeah, let me say what did I mean by that? I had a tremendous crowd speaking to Christians. I mean, this was a crowd that liked me a lot. I think I'm at 97% or something. And they're treated very badly by this administration, okay? Catholics are treated unbelievably. They're like persecuted. And if I might say, before I go into the other, Jewish people, if you're Jewish and you vote for Biden or the Democrats or Kamala or whoever's going to run, I guess it's going to be her. But if you voted for her or the Democrats, you should have your head examined.
He was also asked about debating Kamala Harris.
I want to do a debate, but I also can say this. Everybody knows who I am, and now people know who she is. She's a radical left lunatic. She'll destroy our country. She wants open borders.
And why not debate her?
Well, wait. But because they already know everything.
Trump was also asked to go to bat for his running mate, J.D. Vance.
What can you say to our viewers tonight to reassure them that this was an excellent pick?
Well, first of all, he's got tremendous support. And he really does among a certain group of people that like families. I mean, he made a statement having to do with families. That doesn't mean that people that aren't a member of a big and beautiful family with 400 children around and everything else, it doesn't mean that a person he's not against anything. But he loves family. It's very important to him. He grew up in a very interesting family situation, and he feels family is good. And I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that.
There was a lot there, Robbie. I think that Trump answering these questions, he dances around like the real issue that they're trying to get at. On the J.D. Vance thing, it's very obvious that J.D. Vance is not doing so well among people who don't have families, making comments like about childless cat ladies and making comments about abortion. It's really, I think, hurting the Trump campaign in a way that they might not be able to recover from.
Is it? I don't know that the criticism on social media from liberal, progressive, left people who hated Trump already and hated J.D. Vance already is representative of anything. I mean, yes, there are a lot of people who disagree with J.D. Vance and who are going to be voting for Kamala Harris and would have been voting for Joe Biden and don't agree with his agenda. And I don't know that his remarks have really changed that all that much. You know, as I've said when we talked about this previously, he agrees that that was a sarcastic remark to hone in on childless cat ladies. And as Trump kind of tried to soft pedal that to say like, well, we're not trying to demonize people who don't have families or people who like cats or any part of the electorate. It's just important to J.D. Vance that people are able to have big families if they want. And the thrust of that is the new national conservative economic populism that he is a thought leader of, seeks to reorient and realign public policy to make it easier for people to have families. Ideas along this lines are like the child tax credit, which is something that even some progressives like, making it more economically incentivizing people to be able to have more children, because the cost of childcare has gotten way out of whack. The cost of schooling, the cost of buying a bigger and a bigger house so you can have room for all your kids, depending on where you live in the country, is difficult. So it's not meant to be insulting to people who don't have kids. I don't have kids. I'm not trying to insult myself, and I don't even agree with some of these policy ideas. But that is the agenda of the new right, is to create a kind of economic populism that makes it easier to have large families.
But I don't know how raising taxes on people who don't have kids.
No, we're not going to raise taxes on people who don't have kids.
Well, that's something that the right has entertained. That people who don't
the
have
right
kids
doesn't want to
will
raise
pay
taxes
higher
on anyone.
So, I think that would be very unpopular. I think that Trump's policy to cut taxes by a greater margin on corporations, but have tax cuts expire for middle and working class people, the tax cuts he pushed will expire in December of 2025. Why he made corporate tax cuts permanent, but tax cuts for families temporary, I think speaks to the reality that he doesn't actually care about families in the way that he says this campaign does. And talking about the Christians, saying that Catholics are persecuted in the United States, I don't know what he is talking about with that, Robbie. I honestly don't. And him telling Christians they'll never have to vote again, I don't understand what he means by that, even after hearing him answer for it.
I mean, we should ask our Fridays host, Amber, more
Amber
about this. I think she would have some ideas. I suspect she might point to the arrests of, I believe they were Catholic protesters outside abortion clinics. Those kinds of things.
But
they're
Amber loves
engaging
when
in
unlawful protesters are arrested. And
her
and I have talked about that before at length, but yes. Is that's really it?
They were
That's the only
unlawful.
example?
They were unlawful protesters.
That's the only example? I mean, they were blocking entrance to a health clinic, which is against the law. Yeah.
So you found some protesters. You want to throw the book at them?
I'm not saying we should throw the book at protesters, but blocking access to health care?
Okay, what about
that
graffitiing a statue in the city?
I mean, if they find who did it, they probably would arrest them. Do I agree with that being illegal? Do I agree with people getting arrested? No, but removing people.
You don't agree with people getting arrested unless they're outside
Do I think someone needs to be
clinic.
detained in jail and await arraignment and potentially not be able to afford cash bail? I think it's a strain on the system and a much larger conversation. But I will say, if someone's blocking the entrance to a health clinic, which is illegal, they should be removed. They don't need to be jailed, but they should be removed.
Okay.
But I don't think that's persecution for being Catholic. They were removed because they were breaking the law by preventing entry into a health clinic. So I don't know what he means by Catholics being persecuted. I think what he's referring to is this feeling that because Catholics and Christians are imposing their beliefs through law, and they do say this, they say these are our values, this is our religion, we would like to make laws about it. Unfortunately, the Constitution prevents that.
All laws are imposing someone's values on someone else. They're not all religious values, but there's some values.
And we have freedom of
religion. Your value is that
Right.
corporations should pay more in taxes.
And their
So you're
beliefs.
using the law to impose that value.
But their beliefs not being popular, not being something people want to vote for, doesn't mean they're persecuted. People not wanting their values imposed on them doesn't mean their religion is being persecuted, just because other people don't agree with the religious values. And I think Trump, in really deciding to speak to this Christian nationalist evangelical faction of the United States and support Israel and make criticisms of Democrats, he's really made this a key focus of his campaign, calling Biden a Palestinian as some kind of slur, saying that the Democrats don't support Jewish people or Israel. We know, because we've heard from Tim Burchett and Lauren Boebert, that their support of Israel comes from a religious place of believing that end times are coming and that the Holy Land needs to be controlled and that there needs to be great war in the Middle East. And so, as one ex-user put it, I don't trust my cat's future with someone who believes we're in the end times and the end is coming and they want to usher that in.
All right, if you say so. More Rising right after this.
White Dudes for Harris raised $4 million for Kamala Harris over a Zoom call Monday evening. The group is the latest demographic-based mobilization effort backing Harris. 190,000 people participated on the call that was arranged by Democratic organizers unaffiliated with the Harris campaign. Contenders of Harris's potential VP picks, including Pete Buttigieg, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, joined the call, as did celebrities Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Mark Hamill, Bradley Whitford, Josh Gad, Paul Scheer, singers Lance Bass and Josh Groban, and of course the original white dude Jeff Bridges, who played the role of Jeff Lebowski, the dude in the 90s hit film Big Lebowski. By the end of the call, over 150,000 people ended up joining the group.
But in the hours since the call, the White Dudes for Harris X account appeared to have been temporarily suspended. Midas Touch co-founder Brett Measles posted, quote, breaking, X has suspended the White Dudes for Harris account at Dudes for Harris after raised more than $4 million for Kamala Harris. This is the real election interference. Well, that's just like your opinion, man. Another ex-user posted, quote, mid-drafting the account, it just locked. No reason given, ridiculous, but we got it back quickly. They scared. Apparently, the group violated X's community rules, leading to the suspension, but it seems the account has been reinstated. I find this kind of group weird, but, you know, that's
White
a word
Dudes for
where...
Harris, man. Yeah.
It's just weird. Why
is
are we doing all these race-based groups? Why? I don't understand. I just don't get it.
Well, because many people see race when they interact with other people, and it's a social thing to be like,
I don't
what
see
does
it.
it
I
mean
don't
to
see
be
white,
a white
I just see
dude?
green.
Yeah,
I just see green.
I identify as green. That's what I put when, ask my race on
Yeah.
forms. Okay, but seriously, the White Dudes for Harris, I think it's like there's a black woman running for public office. Trump does very well with white men. It's like, what are we doing, fellas? We're getting together? We're going to win this thing? 40,000 people didn't end up joining the group. I don't know if it's just because it was a one-time thing. They joined, they donate, they're on the call. They decide, after hearing from their peers, who they're going to vote for. They want a country that's good for white dudes, and they're talking about their mutual interest as white dudes in voting for a black woman, and I think that's beautiful and maybe a little bit progress.
I noticed on Twitter yesterday that, do you remember the name Richard Spencer? That's the leader of the white nationalists, the leader of the alt-right. He tweeted in support of this, saying that he actually prefers the Democratic Party now.
Yeah, white dudes gotta stick together.
He prefers the Democratic Party and has been a Biden supporter for a while as the party that is more interested in an explicitly white, race-based collectivizing.
The guy who organized Unite the Right is a Democrat.
Yes.
For Kamala Harris.
Yes.
He supports Kamala Harris.
Yes. He supports the Democratic Party and their efforts to do outreach to white voters and to structure whites-only spaces. That's what he said on Twitter.
That doesn't mean he wants Kamala Harris to be president.
I don't know what he said about Kamala Harris. He has supported Joe Biden. He was a supporter of Joe Biden.
I have a hunch he probably doesn't want a black woman to be president, but we'll let Richard Spencer speak for himself, and we look forward to hearing whoever you endorse. Richard, he can come on the program. Actually, no, I don't want to talk to him.
Let's.
But you can issue an official statement whether or not you support Kamala Harris. We're dying to hear from this one white dude.
I'm just saying, my point being, there's a lot of if you want to be against racism, stop putting people in racial categories. That I don't know why Democrats are doing all of these things. They claim that Republicans are making policies just for white people, that Republicans don't want, that Trump and Vance don't want immigrants to come to the country or don't want a mixed race society or whatever, and you're making explicitly identity-based groups day in and day out to support Kamala Harris. It's just stop thinking about people as black or white or Asian or whatever. Just think of them as Americans with certain policy interests and needs, and what is the policy coalition that is going to best address what people need, not what black people need or what white people need or what Asian people need, but what the American worker needs, the American underprivileged needs.
Yeah, I don't think it was about what we need. I think it was more about what do we need to do to live in a country where we actually don't see racial disparities. And acknowledging your race and the divisions across racial lines is important. You can't fix a problem without identifying where it is. And saying, what are we as white dudes not doing enough? That results in not enough organizing effort behind ending mass incarceration of black Americans. There's something to be said for everyone realizing that they're trying to divide the American public in order to conquer them. And when I say they, I mean the elites in the country. Making people divided across class, making people divided across religion, across ethnicity, across political party, I think is a deliberate tactic so that they can continue to have this uniparty that makes policies in the direction of the elites and at the expense of everyday working people, and coming together as white people and saying, hey, they're trying to push this message that, white supremacy is something that is in danger if a lot of immigrants come in. What are you going to do about it? They're trying to fearmonger white people from being against DEI initiatives and from being against lawful immigration. And I think coming together and recognizing that as white dudes is good.
Well, I agree with some of what you said and very much disagree with other parts of it. I agree that the elites are trying to divide us on the basis of artificial distinctions, most importantly race. Progressive elites love to talk about race. They love to make everything about race because that avoids them having to tackle the actual difficult class differences in this country that could be addressed by policies that they don't want. So they try to make it about race. But I don't consider DEI to be some misdirection at all. DEI policies are obnoxious to a vast number of people in the country, including many black Americans who have to sit through the same ridiculous, totally scientifically fraudulent seminars in workplaces and education that everyone else has to, and find them just as idiotic and obnoxious. And everyone wants to succeed on their merits, to be hired and admitted on the basis of their merits. And it's really gone off the rails with some of that stuff. On the immigration stuff, right, I'm a little bit out of step with many others on the right because I do want more legal immigration. I want to make it easier to come here to this country and work and to contribute to the health and productivity of America. And there is a new, not necessarily new, an ascendant politics on the right that is deeply skeptical of that and thinks that will be bad for the country. And, I end up arguing with those people all the time. I did a 2-hour debate on this subject 2 months ago, for with Zero Hedge against Ryan Jardusky and Jack Posobiec, who are arguing for much, much, much more restrictive immigration. I think even more immigration restrictions than is supported by most Republicans. So that is definitely out there, and I don't think it's ultimately I don't think it's good because I don't think it's good for America. I don't think it's good for working people here if we have a smaller supply of labor and eventually houses and all the rest. So I'm arguing against those policies too, but I don't think it's based on I don't think it's racism that's motivating it. It's just economic concerns that should be addressed with the other side of the economic argument, that this is not actually going to improve our economy, to start artificially saying that, no, we can't have people come in and contribute to the very building the very economy we need.
Yeah, I think that's why I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt on the call saying, and this is someone who's a white man, our country, originally the only people who could vote were white landowning men. We've only ever had presidents who are men, with the exception of one black man. All of them were white. And so I appreciated that he said Trump is a businessman, but and people say that he'll be good for the economy because of this, but really the way he's run his business is not paying workers. He's not someone who has workers' interests in mind, and workers make up the majority of the economy. So is he really good for the economy? What's been the impact of the Trump presidency? So the call was substantive, talking about real issues among white dudes.
If you say so. Well, that does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll be back with another edition of our show tomorrow.
Rob is going to rest his voice up for us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we are available wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.